Good good afternoon, everyone. Should that be that big box there be there? Oh, oh, thanks, Chandra. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to get the wheelchair repair task force going. I see most people are online, so thank you for taking your time today to be here with us. I'm Beverly Brakeman, the chair, and oh, wait, can people hear me? Okay. So today, as folks know, we are having a presentation by the consumer advocates, which we are emailing out right now to people. We just received that from the consumers. So just as a reminder to folks, when we have information that we need for the meeting, we really would like to have it a couple days in advance so people can digest it. So Chandra, you're going to be able to share the screen? Who's doing the presentation for the consumers? Is it you, Jonathan?
I'm doing the presentation and I can, it would be easiest if I can share the screen.
Is that all right? Okay. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And then after that, um, we'll open it up for discussion and questions.
Great.
So Jay, did you have anything you wanted to add before we get started?
Good morning.
Let's get going.
All right, just give me 1 second while I get this up. And again, everyone, I'm sorry that the presentation came late. It doesn't have much data that everyone already doesn't have. It was just in putting it together, we didn't have much time. So again, my apologies for that. Get this. I'm sharing screen now and going to begin. Okay, can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So today my name is Jonathan Sigareth. Let me just start off with that. I am a consumer advocate. I live in Stratford, and I've lived with a spinal cord injury, and I've used a ultra lightweight manual wheelchair since 2006. So I know a little bit about this issue personally, and you're going to hear from several of my friends and fellow advocates their personal stories as well. And that's really the focus of our presentation, is putting stories and faces to some of the data that we've been seeing and trying to understand the human cost and the human priority that really needs to be incorporated into solutions that we that come out of this task force and any legislation. So I want to also preface this presentation by saying we understand that COVID has had an impact on the industry, on the repair industry. There have been delays, and there is a backlog. But as we've seen in previous presentations, the vast majority of the delay has nothing to do with shipping time. It has to do with staffing levels. It has to do with the availability of technicians to go to people's homes to do assessments and repairs. And we really are going to focus on pushing back against the notion that convincing more consumers to go to the shop to get their wheelchairs repaired is really untenable. 90% of New Motion and National Seating and Mobility's customers currently utilize in-home repairs. That is not a preference. That is a necessity given our condition. And I hope you understand that from the stories that we're going to share. So I want to first, is Jamie Moger on the call? Jamie, you're on mute. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen while Jamie shares their story.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, Jamie.
So Jamie, thank you for taking the time to share your story with us today. Can you just tell us a little bit, in about 5 minutes or so, tell us who you are, your condition, who you work with in terms of to repair your chair, and kind of what issues have you been facing?
My name is Jamie Moser. I live at New Horizons Village. I have cerebral palsy. I've been in a wheelchair all my life. And one incident I just had a little while back is on July 9th, my chair stopped working. The right motor broke and my front wheels seized up. So on July 10th, I called New Motion, and it took them till the middle of October to get my chair repaired. It was I had a real hard time being in my backup chair because it really no longer fit me and it was really uncomfortable. So it took them a long time to get the repair done. They came out with the wrong parts a couple of times, and that was really hard till I had them come pick up the chair to take it into the shop a month later, and I didn't get the chair back until the middle of October.
Okay, so thank you, Jamie. So you were without your chair for 3 months.
Yeah, just about 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah, and the wrong parts were ordered. The wrong parts were ordered twice. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, Jamie's story illustrates, the importance of ordering the right parts, what happens when we're not able to have backup chairs or get insurance reimbursement for our backup chairs, which is something that the industry and consumers are jointly fighting for. So thank you, Jamie. Did you have anything else to add about that?
I just want to say that perhaps if we took away the waiting for prior authorization, that would be a way to speed up the process. I don't really know how that's done, but I think that would be a good thing to do because my disability isn't going to change, so I don't have to prove I'm disabled, or I shouldn't have to prove I'm disabled. I don't know why we had to wait for prior authorization to get anything done.
No, definitely. And that is something that we all agree on, that we want to get removed. So thank you, Jamie.
You're
Um, next
Jonathan,
is
first, Senator Seminara has a question, I believe, for Jamie. So hold on.
Hi, Jamie. It's Senator Seminara. I did want to ask, what do you think, what was from your perspective, what was the holdup in getting your wheelchair fixed? Was it the prior authorization?
could have been a number of, could have been the delay in getting the wrong parts, mostly. And
Did that happen to you? Were the wrong parts ordered
yes,
twice.
twice.
twice?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And then there was a requirement of prior authorization, correct?
That didn't take too long.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, if we took that away, the process might go quicker. So that's what I hope we're able to do.
Okay. Well, we're going to look into that, but it sounds like there was an unnecessary delay once again because there were parts that were ordered that were inappropriate parts twice.
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate that feedback, Jamie, and I also appreciate you coming in today or testifying today for that information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Seminar, for that question. So now we'll go to Suzanne. Is she on the call?
This is Sheldon Taubman. Suzanne is not going to be able to be here in person, but she's authorized me to read her statement.
All right, go ahead.
Good. And I personally know Suzanne, so I mean, I don't know her really well, but I appreciate where she's coming from. So this is her statement. Suzanne contacted NSM on September 11th due to issues with her tires and steering. They told her they do not have enough drivers for a home visit, so if she did not come in person to the Newington office, she would have to wait several weeks for her evaluation visit. When Suzanne visited the office, the technician confirmed that they did not have enough remote techs and are booked, quote, until further notice, close quote. Suzanne has access to paratransit, but they would not allow her to take her backup wheelchair with her on the van. She therefore had to rely on NSM to provide her with a chair to transfer into. Because of the unfamiliar setting and wheelchair and lack of accommodations, that is, she requires a lift, she felt very unsafe transferring and is feeling anxious about having to return to get the chair repaired. NSM told her that they would order the parts and let her know when she could return to the office for the repair. While she has been waiting, the steering issues have worsened, and she recently ran over her PCA's foot twice. On November 8th, she spoke to an NSM representative who told her they have ordered some of the parts needed for repairs, but that others aren't ordered yet. The best estimate was that they would be ordered sometime in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Sheldon. So again, this illustrates the challenges of going to the shop. Paratransit can be difficult, and you know these misplaced orders again just add additional delays and risk.
Jonathan,
Sheldon,
Senator Seminara has a question, I guess, to Sheldon from that story.
of course.
I may not be able to
Sheldon,
answer it. But
Sheldon, I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer this question, and maybe Jonathan might be able to answer the question, or we may have to inquire with Suzanne. But why were they not ordered? Why, if she went, they did an evaluation of her chair, they determined what parts were needed. Why were they not ordered? Why were only some ordered and some were not? That absolutely makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I would beg for some clarity on that, because I can't imagine Suzanne called and spoke to that representative and that representative wasn't able to give an answer as to why that happened. Or perhaps she didn't question that, but I'm questioning that now. So maybe NSM could look back on their records and find out why somebody would come into the facility, have an evaluation of their wheelchair, a determination of parts that are needed, and only some of them get ordered.
Yeah.
That it's
I can speak to what I think might be the cause from my own experience and from, you know, the stories that we've been hearing. It just gets lost in the shuffle. You know, when I called in for repair for some replacement tire bearings last summer, a repair that took several months to replace, you know, a $10 piece. It took me 4 days just to get in touch with the office at NSM. And that was because, and the person on the phone apologized to me afterwards, there was one person in the office running customer service, prior authorization, all the billing, all the scheduling for the techs. One person was in the office, everyone else was on the road doing repairs. So when you have such low level of staffing that's in charge of orders, of verifications, of billing, these things are going to happen. And we've seen time and time again from other stories that this is a common occurrence, from at least what we've heard.
okay. I don't want to go by hearsay. I want to go by me getting the exact
data.
reason. And I'm
Absolutely.
just, so I want to throw this out to the industry. Can you look at her file and find out why this might have happened? I know she's not here to answer the question, but I'm just wondering, can somebody, while we're in this meeting, look at the
what
file?
I need, this is NSM. Can I get the complete, I need to complete, either Sheldon can send it to me since we're all online. I need the actual full name so I can look up the
Yeah.
right order.
I'll share my screen again and you can
Thank
see
you.
her.
I'm just wondering, is it related to prior authorization? Although I find that a little complex too, from the standpoint of if somebody's placing an order, I would imagine all the parts are ordered at one time. Some may require prior authorization, some not, but that doesn't mean that the order doesn't take place. So can somebody in the industry just answer that question for me? When somebody comes in and has an evaluation and all the parts are determined what is needed to fix the chair, does an order go in for all the parts at one time?
Senator Seminara, I mean, it's Gary Gilberti with the motion. I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's not our customer, but I'm happy to give you a reason why that could happen. It could be that we're ordering from different manufacturers. You know, on most of these chairs, we have parts from multiple manufacturers. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but usually when we call, you know, when we order parts, when we establish what parts we need, we call the manufacturer and ask them for a quote, and we ask them for specific part numbers. And so sometimes things get lost in communication from us to the manufacturer. We generally give them a serial number of the chair. But as I said on our last call in our presentation, sometimes things change on the chair from the time it's initially provided to the time that we do repairs and things on it. So even if we give the serial number, it might have been modified somehow. So those are just a couple instances. I'm not saying it's right, but that's, you know, that's what can happen.
Gary, that I just have to, it doesn't make sense to me from the standpoint of they're saying the parts were not ordered. Not that, so again, my question becomes, when you do an evaluation of somebody's wheelchair and you determine what parts are needed, even if they're from multiple vendors, does somebody sit from beginning to end and order all those parts at one time? That's
They're
what I'm.
supposed to be. They are, at least I can only speak for New Motion, can't speak for NSM, and this is an NSM situation, but generally what we do, we move the whole order forward. It goes to our purchasing department and they place the purchase orders manufacturers at one time. That's what's supposed to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Page.
Thank you, Beverly. And Jonathan, I just want to make sure that we're clear. I mean, we're looking at things on people's stories, but we don't have the facts. And this is where we come into a problem, because we got the presentation 5 minutes before this meeting. And I know we work on this in DSS with many issues. We had it with non-emergency medical, where there were stories and things. And once we started investigating and looking at it and finding the backup, the stories didn't match up. So we really need to this presentation, and we want to make sure that Suzanne was treated the right way. Obviously, we want to make sure that her parts were ordered. And if there was a problem, those are things that we need to look at. But we need the facts to back up a story if Suzanne's not going to be here. So I'm just saying, we need to hear the stories, but there's always got to be a backside of why they weren't fulfilled. And that's what we need to do as a committee, find out what took place. So I guess that's what we're here trying to actually figure out. And I know Sheldon knows this from working with and non-emergency medical transportation. There were a lot of stories that came out after the situation happened, but now we're actually acting because people are able to complain or put a concern in at the time that it's happening. And that's when we can really take an effect and act on things. So hopefully we can get some backup on these stories that are in the presentation, so we actually know. We don't want to pin manufacturers on a live meeting when the facts aren't here. So we just want to be careful.
Yeah, the effect on these individuals are facts. And I appreciate Seminar's questions for immediately wanting to follow up on them.
Okay.
And
I think Diane
So,
is going
yeah.
to look into that. So why don't we
Yeah.
move on?
Definitely, thank you. So Maureen is going to share her experience next.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have two stories that I'm going to share. I'm a customer of New Motion, and
Maureen, sorry,
yeah.
just a second. Jonathan, can you stop sharing the screen, please, so we can?
Oh, yes, sorry,
Maureen?
thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Maureen. I'm a customer of New Motion, and I've had a wheelchair for a little over 3 years. My foot plate was never properly fitted to me. Being a new user, I didn't know that I should do anything about that. My physical therapist eventually got me an appointment with New Motion in June of 2021. I met with ATP. He evaluated me and said he would order some custom parts, and I never heard back from him. It's 2.5 years later, and this situation is still not resolved. I had no communication from the ATP. I continued to call and text, and then I called and texted the office. Not texted, I called the office. In a period of 4 months, it was like 37 calls to the office. I was always getting different excuses, different reasons of what was going on. They all conflicted. I was told that they would take care of it, that they'd have him call me back. Nothing ever happened. So in September of 22, I ended up sending a letter to Mike Swinford, CEO, for this issue and some other repair issues that had built up. He referred it to a vice president who was able to get the repairs taken care of, but not the foot plate issue. So I had to continue to call to get this appointment scheduled. I finally had an appointment in March of this year. Because of so much time had passed, we had to do a reevaluation. He again said he would order custom parts. I didn't hear back. And so again, I had to make more phone calls. I finally just emailed. I sent an email to everyone I had an address for, and we got an appointment for August. I finally feel like we're on track to get a resolution. we had an appointment in October and the foot plates arrived, but they need to be cut down a size. And now I need a mechanical part added because of the progression of my disease. But it seems like we're on a path to resolution. One thing that stands out to me is right before I made that appointment in August is that I was told that maybe I had not done enough to get this issue resolved, and that perhaps we all shared in the blame of this delay. And I don't appreciate that. This was 2.5 years of my trying to get this issue resolved. The language is ableistic. It's blaming the customer, shaming the customer. And it kind of goes back to the last week's meeting regarding the in-store repairs and remote evaluations, and the way we're feeling very pressured into having these visits done versus in home. When I have made a repair call within the past 2 years, I'm always feeling very pressured to have the remote eval or to have the in-store visit, and I can't. And I have to continue to explain why my explanations aren't accepted, and so it's just becomes an argument. When I have to continue to repeat myself, I'm not feeling respected, and I just feel I'm being treated like I'm being uncooperative and unreasonable, and it's not the case. As Jonathan said, it's not about preference, it's about necessity, it's about my safety, and it's about accessibility. I do have an experience recently of using both the remote evaluation and in-store visit. My suspension failed on my wheelchair, and my sister luckily was with me. And so she was able to do the remote eval. I needed the use of a smartphone, but she needed to get on the ground to get different angles of my wheelchair. She was like getting under my wheelchair to take these videos. So this is not something a disabled person can do. You need 2 people, and you need someone who's very able-bodied to get this evaluation done. And with a success rate of 18 to 22%, I don't understand why you're pushing the customers to use this option. I opted to do the in-store visit because the gas cylinders cannot be done in home. And I usually had a loaner chair, or they did the appointment out in my parking lot. I just opted to, I said I would come into the office for this visit. The day of my visit, they called me to tell me that they did not have the parts. This was this past Thursday. And my transportation was already en route. My sister was en route to come to the office, so I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't cancel. So I just opted to keep the visit, and hopefully they could do some of the repair. And at this point is when I emailed Jonathan to let him know. He mentioned it in the task force meeting, and one of the first responses was that perhaps I did something wrong. Maybe I asked for a repair for the wrong chair, which I only have one chair. But it's that the immediate response is that it must be the customer's fault, that I did something wrong. Your facility, New Motion, is not equipped to handle wheelchair users. It's not equipped for transfers. You have a Hoyer lift with a very low bench that some people may use. They need to have the assistance of their own people to help them with a Hoyer lift. I needed to use a loaner chair. I did not have the guarantee that there would be a loaner chair that I could transfer into. They told me they would call me to confirm, but they never did. So I was going in blind, hoping that there would be a chair available, and there was, but it wasn't a guarantee. The transfer, I did not feel comfortable. There's no bars or anything to hold on to, so I felt very close to falling. It took me 3 attempts to get out of the loaner chair back into my chair. And so it wasn't safe. I am not looking forward to having to do this again when the parts come in. Also, your restrooms are not accessible. There's a stall, but you can't get the wheelchair into the stall, close the door behind you, get to the toilet. So this is why I said it was irresponsible for you to push for in-store visits when you're not equipped to accommodate us. And just really quickly, moving forward, this part that they did not receive, they've asked for it to be reshipped, but they're shipping it ground from California. I don't know why it's ground and not expedited. Your tech is on vacation this week, and he says he has no one filling in for him this week. He said that when the part arrives, it's not going to trigger anything in the system. It's some kind of system glitch because in the system it shows that the part already arrived. And so it's the onus is on me to call New Motion and make sure the part arrived, to make sure that I get my follow-up appointment scheduled. I'm also moved to the back of the queue. There was a question or the conversation last week about who gets bumped. It turns out when New Motion makes a mistake, I'm the one who gets bumped, and I'm bumped to the back of the line because New Motion made a mistake. So now it's looking like it's going to be early December, late November, early December at the earliest that we can get this fixed. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Maureen, for sharing.
Maureen, do you
that
mind?
Oh.
Maureen, this is Gary Gilberti with
Gary,
New
can you
Motion.
hold on a second, Gary?
Sure. Sure.
Because I know Representative Smith had his hand up, and then maybe you can respond to some of the concerns. That would be great. I had one quick question though. Maureen, you said a number of times that you were pressured or you were told it was was that by the ATP or was that by I wasn't clear to me what.
Oh, pressured to come into the store.
No,
to the
you
shop?
you indicated that that you were told that you were not doing enough to get your repairs done. And
So
I'm
this was when I sent a group email to everybody that I knew, and so it was one of the managers who told me that perhaps I just hadn't done enough to get this taken care of, and this
Okay.
was this was
all right. Thank
2
you.
years in.
Okay. Okay. Representative Smith, you have your hand up, and then Gary.
Can you hear me, Beverly?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I know last time I had some trouble. Maureen, thank you for coming in to testify today. Just a real quick question. When you made the decision to go in shop with this, because we're told by the suppliers that that's the preferred way, how did you physically transport your chair and yourself to the NSM shop?
That was through Hartford Transit, paratransit, which the only reason I could do it was because the chair is working well enough to get onto the van. So I have access to paratransit and cab service.
This is at your expense, right?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Maureen. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rep Smith. Gary, did you want to respond also?
Yeah, Maureen, first I apologize for your experience. That's not acceptable. I on the behalf of New Motion, I'm just going to say that up front. I will go back and look at the situation personally and see what I can do. I know that when you attempted to come out, we did not have. I need to research that even further to find out. Do you mind sharing with me, or you can email me if you would like, who the ATP was that you were working with? I mean, I can find out, but I'd have to dig a lot. But
do you want me to tell you, or do you want me just to email you?
Why don't you just email me? I don't want to,
Yeah, I don't. And I don't, your texts, I don't have a problem with any of your texts. I know I just feel they're overworked, but they're all really great. I like all of them, so.
Okay, and I am going to address some of the facility issues at a later time.
Sorry. I didn't realize you were not done. Go ahead.
I'm finished for now. Thank you.
Gary, I do have a question for you. So,
sure.
Is this true? So when New Motion makes an error, does the client get bumped to the back of the line?
That's not depending on we try and triage the orders. We try and prioritize the orders, and I don't believe we consciously move somebody to the back of the line. We shouldn't be. If somebody's got an urgent need like that, we should we should expedite shipping. We a lot of times do that. And I don't know why that didn't happen in this case, but I need to research it.
The expediting shipping is one question, but my question is that how it works? So if somebody comes in, has an evaluation and their issue isn't resolved, whether that's New Motion's fault, and I'm going to think that the majority of the time it's a complication from New Motion, maybe ordering the wrong part, maybe not having all the part, whatever. Is it typical then for you guys to say, okay, well, we've seen this person, we're gonna order the parts and try to rectify the situation, but now we're gonna put them at the back of the line?
We don't consciously do that. It depends on, when we order the parts, the correct parts, and how, and again, in this case, we should have expedited it. It should have been moved up. But if the parts aren't going to come in for 2 weeks like that, we schedule it based on when we expect the parts to be there.
Okay, so that's how you typically do it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that clarity.
Thank you.
Okay,
Awesome.
Jonathan.
And yes, thank you. And Maureen, just very quickly, you developed sores on your feet, right, as a result of some of these delays.
Yeah, I have sores. I haven't been able to elevate my feet for the whole 3 years I've had the chair. And also, because the way my feet are sitting on the foot plates, the bones have deformed. They're turning inwards. And so I can no longer wear shoes. My custom shoes don't fit on my feet anymore. So those are some of the complications I've had because of the foot plate issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So I hope everyone can glean from these stories that there's a real cost to these delays, and the cause of these delays is also very can be quite complex. A lot of moving parts need to work together, but there need to be sufficient staff to make all those parts work together. So next I'm going to share some survey data that we took. So this first piece was from a survey of 73 manual and power wheelchair respondents in November 22 to January 23. It was conducted by the Connecticut, the State Independent Living Council in Connecticut, which I'm a member of. And this was just for contacting a vendor. No, sorry, this was an average to repair or replace equipment after contacting your DME vendor. So 23% said that it took less than 1 month, 38% said 1 to 3, 26% said 4 to 6, and 12% said more than 6 months. And then from a survey that we took more recently in 2022, in 2023, between April and September, we asked, how long after your first attempt to request a repair did you connect with the repair company? This is just to get someone on the phone. About 50% said the same day or the next day, and everyone else, 13% 2 days later, 6% 3 days, 6% 4 days, 6% 3 to 4 weeks, 13% longer than 1 month, just to get a hold of someone or to get a call back to communicate their repair. And again, this is not that many. This is 16 responses. So you could see these as anecdotes, but I encourage everyone, when you hear these stories of individuals or just see the small number of respondents, these are the people that we were able to get in contact with. And I really believe that these stories represent a much larger number of individuals. And then after you were able to submit your repair request, how long did it take for your repair need to be evaluated? 90% said their repair was evaluated the same day. This is either in shop or it's through the remote repair option. 6% said 1 day, 6% said 3 days, 31% said 1 to 2 weeks, 6% said 3 to 4 weeks, 31% said longer than 1 month. And this is really interesting. You know, the 62% that said 1 to 2 weeks or longer than 1 month. This corresponds to what we see in the data as well provided by the CRT industry. This slide is based on the timetables that the complex rehab technology industry, NewMotion, National Seating Mobility presented last week. And as you can see in the highlighted yellow, these are times for in-home repairs. And at the bottom, those are the longest. So if measured in business days, this is for assessments. For an in-home assessment, it's 24 to 27 days. And for the entire repair, 60 to 67 business days. That's if parts are in stock, and if parts are out of stock, it's 78 to 90 business days for the entire repair to be completed. We don't yet know how often parts are in stock or out of stock. So that's something that we'd be interested in knowing. But as you see here in the sections highlighted in green, the process point number 1, intake from customer to gather initial information. 7, the repair technician performs the assessment. And 15, the repair technician returns to complete the repair. These are all parts that are completely in control of the CRT providers. This has nothing to do with delays from shipping or ordering parts. And yet, as we've seen, you know, sometimes it takes a long time to get in touch with and to provide that initial information. And then I added a separate step, number 16 at the end in red. Repeat steps 12 to 13 if parts ordered were incorrect or incomplete. So we can see, you know, a multiplication of these 25 to 27 days of waiting to get an in-home assessment, or these 21 to 28 days to get a part even to arrive at the office if orders are incorrect or incomplete. And we can revisit this again if people have questions. But just again to reiterate, the parts highlighted in green, which make up of 2/3 of the delay experienced by consumers, that is in the control of the CRT providers. The next slide. So now I want to focus on, pushing for in-shop repairs is functionally coercive. And I chose these words carefully. We don't believe that the industry is trying to be coercive or is intentionally pushing us in the wrong direction by informing us that in-shop repairs are faster. However, functionally it is. When you say you can come into the shop to get much faster service, in-home wait times are the longest. You are portraying in-home service as a preference, as opposed to a need that 90% of your customers have, if not 100% of your customers. We often hear, if you come to the shop, you can help others get faster in-home service. That's something that we're talking about here. The task force, this is the message we're being told when more in-shop service is pitched as the solution to the repair backlog. That's not something that you should be telling customers. You need to put your needs second in order to help us solve the problem for our other customers. That should be the company's responsibility, not the consumers. Also, the prominent focus on in-shop repairs or remote assessments on both NSM's and NewMotion's service and repair web pages, as well as other customer communications, kind of helps illustrate this problem. There's only a footnote mention of in-home service being an option. So here's a screenshot of National Seating and Mobility. On their service and repair tab, the word home doesn't appear anywhere. In-home evaluation is not described here. It's remote repair evaluation and multifunction inspection. I personally, I love using a smartphone. I love using a remote evaluation. It's fast for me. But as Marissa explained, she can't use a smartphone. That's not an option for people. So when that is not being presented equally as an equally valid, equally important, and affirmed option, this is functionally coercive and ableist. Not intentionally, but functionally. Next, here is NewMotion's webpage for products and services. In-shop service and remote service. There is no category for in-home service. The only place it is described is down below, one little footnote, where it says NewMotion service technicians can help you in your home or at one of our nationwide locations. It's not being described as an equally valid, equally supported option for service. How in-shop repairs should be discussed. Do you need us to come to you, or is it possible for you to come into the shop? You need to be neutral. This should be an option, not portrayed as the best option or solving a problem for others. NewMotion has an awesome consumer, what is it called? Consumer advisory group. I've spoken to several of those members, and what they've told me is they like the idea of in-shop services as an option. In my discussions with them, it should never be the option or the solution to solve this backlog. All right, we need to present these equally. The main advantage of in-shop visits, as illustrated in Maureen and other stories, might be the extent of services that can be offered, right? If you have the most serious repair, you need some equipment that can't be transported to someone's home, or other checks that may be only available in the shop due to the equipment, right? This is how that should be presented.
Jonathan, can I
Yes.
just interrupt for a minute? Are you going to be getting to policy recommendations? Is the policy recommendation in the last information that there should be more visible information about access to in-home repair? Because that's really what would be helpful. Is I think we all wanted to hear from the consumers their policy recommendations. So are you going to be getting to that?
Yes, I'm going to be getting to that. Definitely will be getting to that. One second. There's just the slides were somewhat out of order. Okay. All right, so here are our policy recommendations. Can you see this?
It's a little blur. Yeah, that's better.
Yep. Okay. So these are our policy recommendations, highlighted in yellow below. In-home assessments. So we want the industry to offer in-home assessments to achieve an average 2 to 4 business days, which is the current equivalent of remote or in-shop assessments. This also corresponds to our core priority number 5 that we've discussed in this task force previously. We also want to see in-home repairs achieve the same average 2 to 4 business days, which is the current equivalent of remote or in-shop assessments. We want to see these timely assessments, the next one, and repairs be ensured by either staff to customer ratios or timeline requirements, both which would have penalties for violating either of those, paid to the fancy word promulgating and enforcing regulatory state agency for violations. So there needs to be a state agency like Department of Public Health or another that comes up with these regulations and enforces these regulations, and penalties are paid to that agency for violation of either staff ratios or timeline requirements. We also want to see that the industry has a written and enforced policy of checking of all ordered parts upon receipt to ensure accuracy, and that those parts are reordered when necessary before an appointment takes place. And also I want to iterate that as we're calling for the industry to hire more staff, this is something that consumers can partner with. Our friends, our family members know wheelchairs. They help us repair wheelchairs on a regular basis. So if the industry really is serious about increasing their staff levels and they say they're having trouble finding qualified staff, partner with nonprofits, partner with our consumer groups to find the people who are personally invested in this work, personally invested in the community. We can help you find those quality candidates and even train quality candidates. So that's something that we want to help partner with. And then all above, in the white, these are solutions that the industry had suggested in their previous slide, and we agree with. We absolutely agree with all of these. This includes, number one, extending the prescription to be valid for 5 years, the life of equipment, removing prior authorization requirements, eliminate the need for prescription or statement of continued need, and increase items without prior authorization requirement, as well as set pricing structure for individual consideration parts, as the industry discussed. And this would cut off, if we just go with this cuts off 8 days, right? Prior authorization takes on average 8 days in the whole process. So that's something. All the other solutions that the industry suggested, they are geared towards requirements on the insurance or consumers. And they do not necessarily go to, in and of themselves, they do not reduce the delay in the repairs. For example, cover and paying for repairs to consumer-owned backup chairs to utilize full owners, very helpful. That doesn't solve the delay backlog, but we think we should do that. Cover and pay for consumer transportation to and from service locations. Anything that helps wheelchair users travel in the community, even if it's to an in-shop repair, we support. We think those changes need to be done, but that is not in place of making in-home repairs and assessments more available. Cover and pay for technician travel for in-home and in-community repairs. We support that as well. This will help, insurance can cover technicians to come out and do services. We support that. But that in and of itself cannot guarantee that the industry will increase the amount of staff for in-home and in-community repairs. So those requirements need to accompany that. Cover and pay for preventative maintenance check each year or twice a year, as previously mentioned. We agree with that. Preventative maintenance will help solve a lot of these issues. And consumer partnerships to educate on remote technology. Absolutely. I love, we love remote assessments, but it's not for everyone. So we acknowledge that we can help with education on that, but that should never be presented as the only option. And of course, all of these we have agreement on, including that in-home repair services must be guaranteed, as we have previously discussed. So now I want to address very briefly, National Seating and Mobility and NewMotion, just so everyone knows, these are owned by well-funded private equity. This is not necessarily bad. We like businesses that are well-funded, right?
Hey, Jonathan, this is
yes.
really not a purview of this task force and not really appropriate right now. So
Beverly, this is, my apologies. This addresses the concern that hiring additional staff is not economically feasible, which has been previously discussed. So for the public to understand that these two companies are well-funded, are owned by well-funded private equity companies is an important dynamic.
I think that has been made clear.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just, this is brief. I'm just mentioning this here. Okay. So I won't spend time on this slide, but this is to show that since 2013, National Seating and Mobility has acquired at least 42 other companies. That means they have been purchasing up other companies. So they have been making a lot of investments since 2013, as well as NewMotion. NewMotion has acquired at least 25 wheelchair supply competitors. So that is just context we need to understand when we are calling for them to increase availability of in-home repairs and assessments and increase staff levels. And then, for your reference, this is some relevant media on wheelchair repair and the effect of private equity on this that people should look in on their own time. And now to close out, two more stories from Joe Short and then David Morgana.
Good morning. Everybody can hear me all right? Excellent. I've been a wheelchair user for 21 years now, and originally I had used Connecticut Rehab and ATG Rehab before they were bought out by NewMotion. And over the years, the quality of a service has continually gotten worse. By no means the repairs have ever been flawless. But the wait times continue increasing. Getting a hold of somebody that actually knows you, knows your equipment, has become more of a challenge. And the push to get consumers to come for in-shop repairs has progressively become the norm. For years, I had all of my repairs done at home during a specific window of time, rather than a text message the night before giving you an idea, so you didn't have to spend your whole day wondering when somebody was going to show up. And the only time I originally went into the shop was for major repairs that couldn't be done at home, such as rewiring a whole chair or replacing a broken frame, something that took hours rather than a small period of time. Periodically, I also did go for in-shop repairs of parts that needed to be replaced immediately, but still had techs come out to the house for all of my other repairs, routine maintenance. Prior to NewMotion, common parts were kept in stock or were commonly drop shipped. For example, recently I had a main power wire of my joystick brake, and it took months for NewMotion to replace a simple part. My previous experience with the other companies was that this type of part would commonly be replaced with parts on hand or be shipped directly to me. It was something that I could fix myself. They didn't even need to send a technician out. They'd ship it directly to me within days, and that way I didn't have to cannibalize my my backup chair be stuck in bed over a simple part. I consider myself one of the lucky ones that actually has their own transportation, can drive, unlike the majority of wheelchair users, for whom getting to Rocky Hill is somewhere between difficult and completely impossible. As the service plummeted, I began doing in-shop repairs more frequently because the wait times were less, and because the technician in the shop was more knowledgeable, less errors of them ordering the wrong parts. This was not because I preferred spending my money and time driving to Rocky Hill, but it beat the alternative of waiting all day for a technician to show up with the wrong parts and then having to be rescheduled for weeks or months before they can come back out. When it was Connecticut Rehab and ATG, the in-shop technicians were allowed to assist me with transferring in and out of the wheelchair. So I felt comfortable going there. But since New Motion took over, it's been a push for more in-shop repairs, yet technicians are no longer able to assist with transfers, liability purposes. I understand that, but if you can't do that, then, provide appropriate place for individuals to be able to transfer to. So you have to either find someone to spend the time going with you, or risk falling on the floor simply to get quicker service. No other business selling expensive equipment would allow this long for equipment to get fixed, let alone medical equipment, which is essential for getting out of bed, daily functioning, independence, some cases, basic health for vulnerable individuals. Problem has been going on long before COVID. The push to save money has serious consequences for the safety and quality of life for wheelchair individuals throughout the state. I appreciate you guys taking the time to go through this. It's nice to finally be able to have a voice against many years of getting kind of put on the back burner. So any questions, I'm open to it.
Yeah, Joe, Senator Seminara has a question for you. Thanks.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for providing your testimony. I do have a quick question. So you had said historically parts could be sent to you, and if it was a simple repair, you used to do the repair yourself. Yeah,
to an extent. I'm a quadriplegic, so I'd have friends or family. One of them is on this call that has done a lot of repairs for me in the past. If it's a simple wire, why have a tech come out? I mean, the techs knew me. They knew I was capable, or had someone that was capable of being able to replace that. So they could drop ship it to me. It'd be there the next day or within a reasonable time frame, and they mail me the paperwork or all me the paperwork, be able to sign off on it. It wasn't a long drawn out process.
So are you saying now, and maybe somebody from one of the manufacturers can answer this, are you saying now that that is not an option if it's a simple repair, like a wire change or something like that? The part cannot be shipped to you directly and you do the repair on your own?
To be honest with you, I don't know why it can't be. It was a request. It did not happen. Instead, I kept on getting different excuses every time I called. We were waiting on prior authorization. We're waiting on, parts to come in. And I mean, I have a very common chair for many people. It's a Permobil. It's it's a simple wire. You would think that something like that would be still kept on stock. Back when it was the other companies, a lot of times they would cannibalize other chairs that were and so that the technicians had parts they might not have been new, but at least it would be able to keep you up and running. And you know, so that's been a big change. I don't know why everything is it's always the same excuse that or we're waiting on prior authorization. As we shown in the other slides, prior authorization takes like 8 days max. So why 2 months later I'm calling back and getting the same excuse? So we're still waiting for the insurance company to follow through. I don't know what has changed over the years, but the wait times have, you know, doubled or tripled at least.
Okay, thank you so much. And somebody from the industry, can you answer that question for me? Has that changed? Was that a policy that was done years ago where a simple repair could be done in home, perhaps by the person themselves or somebody who can assist them, and now that's not possible?
It's not I can speak for New Motion. It was not a policy change. I don't know about the specific situation, but I do know that we have plenty of customers that we ship parts to. I mean, there are some liability issues with hooking up certain things on chairs, and we want to make sure that a properly trained technician does it. Now, you know, Joe is quite capable and he's knowledgeable. Not all of our customers are. And so there are cases when we would like to not do that, but you know, there are cases when we can do it and should still be able to do it.
Okay, so that's not necessarily a policy change that has happened for you.
No, and to answer Joe's question about, you know, taking parts off other chairs and things like that, there are some problems with that from a standpoint of providing a used piece of equipment. Now, sometimes we do it just to get somebody up and running, and then we can't bill it until the new piece is provided. But we still do some of that. Sometimes you know, through COVID, we ran out of excess equipment really you know, we were doing that. We were, you know, cannibalizing other chairs to help people get up and running. And we just ran out of it when we couldn't get product.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I don't know if there's anybody from the other manufacturer who would be able to answer that question.
Yeah, this is National Senior Mobility. Yeah, Gary's correct. We do send stuff if it's in. The only time we might not do that is if they're filing through the insurance and if they want us to submit something, then that would not be. And if it's something simple, we can. But the one thing that's changed since before COVID time, when we had more, like to what Gary explained, we have cannibalized a lot of our parts more than normal over the past 2-3 years, which has not been a good thing. Even taking parts and pieces for loaners to get loaner chairs out. We can't always do equivalent for equivalent. We've pulled off the joysticks. We pulled off parts, which was not the norm before. And we've had backlogs, and we know manufacturing's now fully getting up to par, hopefully by the end of this year. But we know joysticks was a long-term wait. And so we did take parts off of pieces to keep and try to keep people up on afloat. And with that backlog that has happened over the past 18 months, we now have a perfect storm, and we're trying to get out from underneath that, part of those delays. That's the only condition I can see. If it's through the insurance, they're going to make sure they get approval and make sure liability is on there. And then depending what it is, they can do some of those things if we know that. It just all depends on the condition. It's not same for everybody.
Okay, Diane, thank you so much for clarifying.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for those questions. And then lastly, David Morgana.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You can? Okay, good. All right. 1 second. When your chair's not right, your day's not right. Hello, everyone. My name is David Morgana. I have a C7 spinal cord injury and as a result of a motor vehicle accident in the year 1997. In the past 26 years, I've used a power chair, a power assist chair, and currently use a manual wheelchair. I've relied on Connecticut Rehab, which turned into ATG and is now referred to as New Motion, So essentially, I've had a relationship with this company for well over 20 years, but with different names. In fact, there are people that still work for the company all of this time. In the beginning, you used to be able to call and speak with someone that was at the shop. There was a personal connection to local staff. They knew who you were, and if there was an issue, I had no problem getting to speak with someone that could address any problem I may have had. As I reflect back, waiting times to get chairs fixed didn't seem long, and customer service was good. People returned your calls. If you needed a specific time for an appointment, you could schedule that. If a part was required, they would usually pre-order it as they were doing the paperwork. This cut down wait times. Nothing is ever perfect, but overall things were good. They went above and beyond. They worked with you. The work got done. Over time, as the company went from Connecticut Rehab to ATG, things started to change. Wait time seemed longer, but I was dealing with many of the same people. That relationship that had been built up over time was intact, and if there was a problem, you could call and get someone local to help you. Then the company transitioned to what it is today. New Motion, no longer that independent company focused on personal relationships above and beyond customer service, but something else. That personal connection to local staff has been essentially severed in the interest of efficiency. Now, when you call, you get someone at a call center or a representative that's out of state and sometimes, in some cases, out of the country, specifically the Philippines. All the local extensions are no more, and if you want to talk to someone local, you have to go through a call center and request a callback. Many times you won't get your phone calls returned. When you need to set up an appointment, you have little to no choice as days and times. Wait times have increased. In my experience, a typical wait time is 2 to 3 weeks just to be seen in the home, 2 to 3 weeks for an in-home evaluation. I think the only reason it's this short is that the only reason it's this short and not the 24 to 27 days on average reported by the companies for in-home assessments is that there is some speeding up the process by using my smartphone and going through the remote technician to evaluate what's broken and get the process going. But many people don't have this option available to them, and not all repairs can be evaluated this way, even if it is. So after waiting a month or more for the evaluation, submitting the insurance, receiving the part, and final verification, you're most likely going to have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks or more to get an in-home repair appointment. I actually just got a swing away armrest and receiver replaced. It took about a month for it to come in. It sat in the shop for about 3 days. They were waiting on Medicare to confirm information. If I had not called when I did, I would not have gotten the time slot I did, just because there was still in that process. I was lucky. If I had not chosen the day they gave me, it would have been another 2 weeks for an appointment, which again seems the standard on the low end of time, 6 to 8 weeks total. New Motion has also implemented routing software to make their repair appointments more efficient for them. So the process to get an appointment now is that you take the day that's available and they text you at the end of the business day before your appointment with a window of time the technician can come to you. So now you have to block off the entire day to make sure you're available for the 4-hour time window they choose for you. This simply doesn't work for everyone with work, school, family responsibilities, and appointments. Overall, it seems the new business model is you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get an in-home appointment, or they say, hey, you can come down today or tomorrow and get your chair evaluated or fixed in the shop. It's quite manipulative, in my opinion. You've already waited a month or longer, and then they tell you it's going to be another 2 or 3 weeks. So of course, some people are going to take that opportunity out of desperation. But there are a lot of people who don't drive, don't have the money in their budget to spend on the gas or transportation to get to Rocky Hill, or their chairs are so bad off it's simply not an option to travel. And many others can only make it to the shop with significant physical pain and taking significant risks and transferring out of their chair at the shop where no assistance is provided. When your parts come in, they are not being checked in all cases, and technicians are showing up with the wrong or incomplete parts, or even worse, you go to the shop as they manipulate you into doing, and they don't have what you need, further delaying the repair process. I can't help but feel that I'm being held hostage. I'm stuck in a dysfunctional relationship inside a broken system controlled by corporate interests. I do not blame the local staff or even middle management. It's the unseen entity behind the curtain that is controlling the strings. This is why the industry cannot be relied upon to do the right thing. They cannot be trusted to police themselves. They can't even be intellectually honest about how many wheelchair technicians they have working for them. I can't help but feel gaslighted when 1 week we are told New Motion has 6 or 7 wheelchair technicians, and the next week we're being told it's a misconception and that they really have 14 technicians, moving the goalpost by changing the definition of who they consider to be a technician, coincidentally matching the same amount of technicians claimed by National Seating Mobility. We've let them do this for far too long, and the results are clear. The people are suffering. Some people end up stuck in their beds, limiting their ability to live independently, not being able to go to school or work, or in more dire situations, end up injured physically, not to mention the emotional and mental strain we go through, dealing with the broken chair and waiting weeks and months, not knowing what will happen or when our chairs will be fixed. Not only is the person that uses the wheelchair affected, but our family, our friends, our loved ones go through this with us as well. The primary solution to fixing wait time issue is to hire more wheelchair technicians, plain and simple. Their own data proves it. When called out on this fact, they say it out loud in the task force meeting and admit that hiring more people will largely solve the wait time issues. It was said by New Motion last week that if they could hire 10 more technicians, they would, but in the same breath, they blame economics for not doing so. When I hear this, I can't help but feel disappointed that compared with the locally owned companies of the past, profits have become more important than the people they are responsible for, who rely on these two companies to live independently, and they are failing us. I wish I could believe that this time will be different, that this time they will do better, that this time they will live up to the high standards of care and customer service they claim to hold themselves to. I just don't believe that anymore. This is the very reason why I believe government intervention is required here, because when it comes to the people's interest or these companies' own corporate interests, we will always lose unless government gets involved to protect the people. The current situation is unsustainable. I call upon legislators to help us find a way forward. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And thank you for sharing that. And just a quick note before we open it up for discussion. As David and many other people have mentioned in their testimonies, staffing is the real issue. And if we can address not only get rid of the prior authorization, which will save us only 8 days, but if we address the more timely in-home assessments, in-home repairs, as well as preventing the wrong parts being ordered, which will have a cascading effect of repeating visits, we can save the vast majority of the delays. We can save upwards of 46 times, 46 business days times however many repeat visits that don't have to occur with the correct parts. So that's one point to keep in mind. The other point is, if we want to make changes for all consumers, no matter what type of insurance they have, if they have Medicare, which we can't regulate, if they have Medicaid, which we can regulate, full insurance payers, which we can regulate, we cannot regulate employer-based insurance. The only change that we can make that affects all consumers in Connecticut, it has to be changes focused on the industry itself, the requirements for the industry, either with these timelines or with these staffing ratios. It's the only thing that guarantees real progress in reducing the repair delays. Thank you guys for the opportunity to share our stories and to present, and I'll leave this slide up.
Okay, I think you can stop sharing the screen,
Okay.
and that would be
Thank you.
helpful. Thanks. All right, I want to thank you, the consumers, for that. I guess I would like to open it up for discussion, and I guess, I want to sort of remind everybody that there's a lot of pain that's been experienced by consumers, and a lot of frustration by the problems that we are here to address, that we passed legislation to pull this task force together to start looking at in a really serious way. And the industry has been here at the table and the insurance groups have been here and the consumers have been here. So I want to just, really, I think it's time now to figure out how we're going to come up with substantive policy changes that can address the problem. And it is my belief and my feeling that everybody here at the table wants to work towards a solution and is solution oriented. So I appreciate hearing from the consumers. I think it's very important that we be reminded. And I think I appreciate the industry coming forward with all the data that they had. And we know there's changes that are going to have to be made in order to address this problem. That's the work they do, and that's the business models they may need to change and address to meet some of the problems. But I'd like to ask everybody to sort of move forward in a way that is positive and in a way that promotes change and being able to continue to have these conversations, because that's why all of us worked so hard to get the legislation passed to create this task force. So with that said, I'd like to open it up to comments, questions that people might have on the data and information that was put forward today.
Hi, this is Senator Seminara again. I'm putting this out to the industry, both industry representatives. Do you have data on how often a part is ordered and it's the wrong part? Are you able to, I recognize you wouldn't have that at your fingertips today, but are you able to pull that data together for the next meeting?
Senator Seminara, yeah, this is Gary Gilberti. We are pulling that as we speak. I've asked our team to try and get us, some data on that situation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I actually had another question that I don't think the industry addressed, but that came up here today with the consumer priorities, was the issue. One of the questions I have is, are there any industry standards around staff to customer ratio? I don't remember that coming up, and I don't believe there are industry standards around that, but if somebody from the industry could address that, if that's ever been discussed, or if there's an unspoken or informal sort of staff to customer ratio that you all abide by or try and follow.
Chairwoman, this is Wayne with NCART. We looked, there is no industry standard. There's no specific issues on that, because that was a question that was asked prior to our presentation. I thought we included in there, but if we did not, there's no standard standard that we're aware of.
And is there an informal one or something that you strive to? Like, one of the things that I think came up, you did answer the question whether it was business or calendar days. I saw that you responded to that as it was calendar days in your presentation. But the number of clients that you see, I think would be helpful. I think you gave percentages. So, but I don't remember. So I guess my question would be, is there an informal sort of staff to customer ratio that you all try and meet?
I can go back to the suppliers and see if there is one. I'm not privy to any inside metrics they may have, but we can talk about that and address that on the next call.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. I see that Rick, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, thanks. Yeah, I recall too also, was there an industry standard for timelines as well? And just to comment versus the option of specifying timelines versus specifying staff ratio to consumers, I would think, in my opinion, the timeline requirement would be more strict and beneficial, because you can have as many people hiring as you want, and if they can't do the job, you're still never going to meet the timelines.
Yeah, Rick, I'm not aware of it, but we'll include that on the list, and I'll get back to you and let you know next week.
on that. We all agree that the timeline now is untenable and it's not working, and we want to fix it. So, but I'll look into that and we'll address it next week.
Thanks, Wayne. And Representative Smith, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I had asked earlier, and I think I neglected to follow up with I was speaking with Maureen regarding her in-shop service and some of the difficulties she experienced. I understand it's an isolated case, as all these are, but indicative of a larger problem. But she indicated she went for the in-shop option with in the hope of getting turned around quickly, which wasn't necessarily the case. She also indicated that she paid out of pocket to have her chair and herself transported to Rocky Hill or wherever the shop was, NSM. Maureen, can I ask you, can you share with us what it costs out of pocket, or if in fact your insurance did cover all or part of the transportation costs associated with the repair?
Representative Smith, I paid out of pocket for the Hartford Transit. That's $3 about, because I get the discount, and then but I had to get a taxi ride home, and that was $5 only because I live so close to New Motion. But for someone who lives out of the Hartford area, it would cost so much more money to get here.
Public transit was able to accommodate you in the chair. It wasn't as if you had to get
Yes.
special transportation service. I just want to get a clearer
Yeah,
understanding.
it's their paratransit. I don't take the bus. I take their paratransit.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Rick, do you have your hand up again, or was that left over?
Yes, I have it up again, thanks. I was just wondering, the solutions that we just discussed on that last slide, does anybody have any opinions on those solutions? Agreeable, good ideas, something to work towards?
I mean, Rick, in the previous session, we agreed to some of those, and Jonathan was upfront about the ones that we agreed upon. We were not given the chance to evaluate this presentation, and I understand these things, sometimes are late, but we're going to go back and look at those. So, again, that's what I can tell you. There were some of the things that the industry agreed upon and the consumers agreed upon. Jonathan did point those out. So we appreciate that. But we need time to look at this presentation again without fully looking at it. And I'm busy taking notes, as I'm sure others are. I'd like to be given the time to address that properly.
Nothing at all, just says, hey, that's a great idea. Sorry.
I mean, Rick,
We've shared with you that, this is multifaceted. So what sounds like a great idea, let's look at how that's going to affect other people as well. Okay. So, we respect Jonathan's ideas and your ideas, and we want to look at those as solutions. We're open to other ideas. It's not an issue of just our way. Okay. Let's work together to come up with solutions. Okay. Unequivocally. My apologies for my video not being on. I mistakenly dropped my computer and it affected that. So.
Yep.
I would
have your hand up, and then I think we can probably. I have one more thing I want to say, and then we can wrap up a little bit early. But go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, sure. Just want to thank everybody for being here and great communication going on. I just was gonna put it back to the industry. God forbid something happens. One of you guys were put in a situation dependent on, say, powered mobility, similar to Joe or similar to Maureen. What would you think would be ideal for, a specific timeline on your chair if you were in dire need of repair?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to take that. Daryl, I mean, as Wayne said, none of us agree that this is tenable or this is right. We're here in good faith to try and find solutions. The stories that were told today are not good. They're horrible. I've been in this business almost 40 years. I didn't stay here that long by not caring about what we do and how we take care of people. So I'm here in good faith to try and make it better. You know, if we can see our way to hiring additional staff, and to Jonathan's point, if Jonathan, you have people you want to recommend to come work for us as technicians, send me their resumes. I'll be happy to hire them. There's going to be a limit to what we can hire. You know, we are a business, and in spite of some of the comments about how we're owned and things like that, any business, privately owned or corporately owned or publicly owned, is in business to stay viable. And we're happy to look at all of the suggestions and offer things where we can get better.
Okay, was that, Daryl, was that what you were looking for, a response from the industry?
Not really directly, because I do think it goes back to what our title is. This is timely repair, and I think we really need to take that into consideration. I do understand the staffing thing too as well, but I know even if staffing is increased, I think there needs to be some sort of increased regulation that way. And I know there are those variables, but definitely, working with the prior authorization and waiving that, I think that is a step in the right direction, and then we go from there.
Thank you, Daryl. All right,
Thank you.
Jonathan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I really also want to hear, a lot of the changes that the consumers in the industry agree with at the moment all address the payers, address the additional insurance reimbursements for travel, for backup repairs. I would especially like to hear from the private insurance representatives. Are they on board with this? Are there any concerns, or is this something that we can, if we all agree, that we can implement? All the points that I shared in the solutions, the vast majority of them have been available to all the parties of this task force from the very beginning. So I really don't want us to end this meeting early. I want us to spend the next half hour expressing any barriers that we see to making these happen. My first question is to the payers, to the insurance representatives of a variety of types. Where are we on the solutions that affect that industry?
Okay, yeah, Susan, you have your hand up. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Jonathan, for the question. I'm sure, as you can imagine, the insurance industry faces a multitude of proposed mandates every legislative session. And while each and every one of them, I think, is laudable in its intent, it is very difficult to endorse any particular one of those. I have to say, also sitting through this task force, I feel like targeting some of the private payer solutions is kind of the easy solution that everyone can agree upon. I think when I've listened to the discussion, if the other issues were addressed, it doesn't sound like the payer issue would be as attractive of a recommendation. I think it's a bit in lieu thereof. So, again, I don't want to say here that we don't appreciate and don't understand, any and all of the frustrations that have been expressed. We do, as we do with every other mandate that's been proposed. But ultimately, it's policyholders that pay for this, and ultimately, it's the employers that pay for this. Any costs that would be associated with, many of the proposals that are out there, and you could probably make many different parallel proposals in terms of travel costs, et cetera, for other conditions and situations. I think there is broad-based coverage and support for wheelchairs currently in the system. I think, again, the market that would be subject to any mandates and regulatory authority is is fairly small in the state of Connecticut and also the most price sensitive employers and consumers in Connecticut. So I think it is particularly challenging for that segment of the market. So long way of saying, respectfully, I would go on record as, opposing, but that would be in the framework of where we are on all mandates of this nature. Or not just
And-
this nature, where we are on all new mandates in the state of Connecticut.
So to be clear, you would go on record as opposing coverage for preventative maintenance checks.
I am opposing a mandate that is put into statute. I believe that there's all kinds of coverage that is currently provided by insurance companies. And by the way, Medicaid, what I'm saying is I would not endorse anything that would be put into statute on insurance coverage. Now,
Are there
I'm not
any
the
other
ultimate decision maker here. That's a decision for public policy makers and the legislature to make. I'm just stating, as an industry, we are very, very concerned about the cost of healthcare. And there are a multitude of mandates that have been, passed over the years. And if public policy makers choose to endorse those and pass those, we will build them into our products and our policies. That is a legislature's, decision and the administration's decision.
So what I understand is all of the solutions that relate to coverage and paying for preventative maintenance, coverage and paying for technician travel, consumer transportation to and from service locations, repairs to backup chairs, elimination of prior authorization, anything that relates to the insurance industry, that industry would oppose, but would adopt only if legislation required it.
I think
You're
Jonathan,
drawing
what Susan is
distinctions that are
saying-
not accurate, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're trying to get me to say something that is not accurate. And
Yeah, I'd like to intervene.
I'm not going to go into that and
Yeah.
into that level of detail. And what I will say is would be happy to have this continued discussion if and when this legislation is proposed in the General Assembly. It is very difficult, as I'm sure some of the industry partners agree to one sentence. I don't know what one sentence means. I think a lot of the things that you've already articulated are covered by insurance and are covered by the carriers. And you know what? You've got to talk to the employer community, which also pays for these mandates and where they would be on this. And, what I'm saying to you here is we have a standard policy on increasing the number of mandates that are in statute. That does not mean we are not covering certain things. It does not mean I'm not supporting covering certain things. What it means is I'm not supporting a mandate in statute. And I hope my words are conveyed appropriately. And to those people that told their stories today, I just want you to know my heart goes out to you. That is not to say that I do not have sympathy and empathy for what is happening. But when we're talking about the public policy realm and what goes into state statute, we have a policy that we have held to about increasing mandates. Connecticut already has the largest number of mandates on the books, insurance mandates on the books in the country. So again, if in the public policy, in the public policy realm, if the legislators and the administration choose to adopt it, of course, we will cover it. It will be the law for fully insured plans. It will not be the law for self-insured plans.
Right. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for that answer. It was pretty consistent. So does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay. Senator Seminara.
Yeah, sorry. I know that we did hear from Gary that he would look into getting that information. And I just would like to request, if possible, Diane, that you provide that information as well for the next time. You could send it in advance, either one of you. And Chandra is so great at dispersing information once she gets it. So if you could provide that information, and the information again, or the question that I had was, do you have statistics on how often a part is ordered and it's the wrong part?
Yeah, we'll have that for you. And like in the chat, I put in there too, Senator, yeah, I just need to know which order that Sheldon was reading for benefit of Suzanne, because we have quite a few orders for her. And I want to make sure I go back to the exact example and pulled up the history on that. And I'll be sure to have that for you for the next meeting.
Sheldon left the meeting, I believe, because he had to. So maybe he can. We'll get a message to him for him to reach out to you. Chandra can get a message to him for him to reach out to you individually on that one incident.
Yeah, he said in the chat, Senator, that he's going to. Yeah, I made sure immediately because I had pulled it up and I had 5 different orders for her.
Okay, but my question, you understand, is universal.
Correct, for the repair. Yep, understood.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you.
You betcha.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to, I think that I am thinking about, so that we can, as we start to coalesce around coming up with some sort of a report with recommendations, I have been thinking about putting together like a survey that would go to everybody on the task force, and so we can have an opportunity to hear from all the different people on the task force about the different policy recommendations that have been made, and if there are any others that people want to make. So I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but I think this is such a big group. It's almost impossible to sort of get those smaller conversations and feedback in this setting. So I'm going to work on something like that we would get out to everybody, so that we can see where everybody is on the different policies that have been recommended so far. So with that, our next meeting will be next Thursday, the 16th. And I guess to that point, does anybody have any feedback or thoughts about what that survey might look like? If you do, why don't we do this? Why don't you email me with any of your thoughts? And I know Barbara Cass has offered to sort of help with, structuring that. So yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
So what I was going to say was, obviously there's going to be policy recommendations that come out of this task force. But I also think that there could be recommendations that come out that don't necessarily have to be put into policy. Like in my eyes, there's some low, for lack of better words, low hanging fruit that might be able to be addressed that doesn't have to be in legislation, that we can certainly make recommendations that I think most people, if not everybody, would be amenable to, that don't necessarily need to go into statute. So I'm going to be providing Beverly with some of my suggestions on that, because I do believe, and if other people have suggestions on that, because I do think everybody on this task force needs to recognize that we will not be able to, legislation has to be proposed, but it also has to be proposed with the mindset that it's passable. Okay. And we are going to do the very best that we can in this group to make policy recommendations that we believe will pass. There's no point in us making recommendations. We can shoot for the moon, and we certainly will, I think, in some cases, but you need to recognize that the policy recommendations may not be, although they make all the sense in the world from a logistical standpoint, they may not be able to be, they may not pass by the legislature as a whole. So all I'm saying is I think I encourage everyone to think about every person in this task force to think about, you do need to think about legislation and what should be legislated, but you also can think about what kind of list can we come up with that doesn't necessarily have to be legislated, but could answer but could remediate issues that have been raised in this group. Because I do believe there are some that we can quickly remedy with agreement on all ends. So that was just something I wanted to throw out there.
Thanks, Senator. Are there any other, Jonathan, do you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment, which is I really appreciate that sentiment, Representative Seminara, and all of the solutions that we've discussed, the vast majority don't need to be legislated. They could be implemented tomorrow by the parties involved. So just to keep that in mind, and I would just encourage us all to remember that the reason why shooting for the moon and legislating as much of this as possible is very important for consumers is because consumers do not have a seat at this table. We do not have a voice in any of these policy or company decisions, except if we're running the company ourselves or through our legislators. So again, that's a really, really important part that I think we need to dwell on and really consider when we look at the role of the task force and the role of the legislation, and really see it as our responsibility to advocate for changing minds and shooting for the moon, as Seminara said. Really appreciate everyone's support in that.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I think that I can speak very personally about the amount of work I put in to get this task force legislation passed, and that everybody is here. And I do not think there is a person on this task force who isn't hearing what consumers are saying and who isn't equally as concerned. And you do have a seat at the table. That's why we passed this legislation to create this task force, and people are listening. And you have my commitment and the commitment of Senator Seminara and Representative Case and Representative Gilchrist and Senator Lesser, that what is said here is going to be taken very seriously. So I want to end the meeting on that note and thank everybody for your presentations and your time, and we will see you all next week. Thanks.